sure we congratulate Steph. Steph Burnham did a great job, and then I know you all know Bearish and Jarian. Bearish completed the marathon again, so congrats to him. And from marathon to a march with Mr. Kraft over in Poland. So definitely support everything that he's trying to stand for here with the Blue Square campaign, and really it's a privilege to be a part of an association, an organization with a leader like Mr. Kraft, who's trying to do so much good. So not a lot of time here for marathon for me and the scouting department. So really piggybacking off of all the work we did through free agency with Steve Cargile and the pro department, Elliot Wolf and myself kind of pivoting here to the draft, having a lot of players in, whether that's free agents, draft eligible players. So that's a lot of work. I remember as a scouting assistant, during the season you kind of have your standard Tuesday workouts. That's a heavy day for you, Monday evening, Tuesday, but here through this process, it's every day. So through the coordination of Brian Smith and Nancy Meyer, kind of the hallmarks of our department, our scouting assistants, Josh Hinch, Marcus Dickerson, Joe Neely, JT Hill, Mitch Sterner. They've all done a really, really good job with these guys. So it's a lot of work trying to get to know these players as well as we can.
Matt, what kind of resource has Bill O'Brien been for you guys, coming from Alabama, obviously? And how much input do you expect him to have in the offensive players that are chosen?
Not just coming from Alabama, but head coach in the NFL. So certainly through free agency, whether it was through his draft prep with the Texans, and then here the last couple of years at Alabama, knows those players very, very well, and then he's in the SEC where there's a lot of good players. So to be able to pick his brain on certain things. Look, I certainly don't have all the answers. Trying to find out as much information about these guys going into the draft as we can, and Coach O'Brien, he's a wealth of knowledge and has been a really, really good friend and resource for myself.
I know that you've seen Zay Flowers at Boston College. You had him at the East-West Shrine Game. But let me ask you this question about your thought process and your skill set. Is Zay Flowers a wide receiver, or is Zay Flowers a slot receiver?
Yeah, depending on the offense, you got to be able to move these guys around, especially a player like Zay that can do a lot of things. So it's easy to pigeonhole these guys. Okay, well, he's a big guy. Well, there's been some big guys that have been slot receivers. You look at a guy like Brandon Marshall. He made his living inside and did a really good job. So, I think there's a certain type that certainly a lot of the fans have seen around here with those smaller guys getting in and out of their breaks, being inside. But, I think it was 4.42 maybe Zay ran at the combine. So talking about a pretty fast guy here too, who can also stretch the field vertically from the outside. So I don't think Zay would want to be typecast as an inside or outside guy. So I just say he's a really good wide receiver.
What are your thoughts on this year's receiver class as a whole? There seem to be some mixed opinions on how many first-round talents there really are.
Yeah, it only takes one. So only takes one team to say, hey, we need a wide receiver, and one goes, and somebody else says, well, hey, we better go get one too. So there's a little bit different flavor between guys like Zay to some of the bigger, longer guys, and we've worked really hard to try and get everywhere and get eyes on these guys. Cam Williams and the scouting staff have done a really good job and crossed a lot of miles to see all these different players. So look, I think if you're looking for a guy, it's not just a first-round guy. There's a lot of good wide receivers in this draft, and there's a lot of good wide receivers in this league that weren't just first-round picks. So you can find these guys, throughout the draft. Obviously, if you're taking one in the first round, you better have some conviction about them.
Are there impact corners who can not replicate, but at least approximate what Sauce Gardner did for the Jets?
Yeah, I don't think any of those guys are probably trying to go into the draft to be Sauce, but you've got some longer guys. You've got some tough, competitive guys. I'm not going to speak on what the Jets think of Sauce, but obviously going against them twice a year, he was drafted really high to be a good player, and he was a really good player for them. So there'll be some guys, who are looking at going probably around where Sauce went, and hopefully they can come in and have that kind of impact for their teams.
There's one hang, kind of just real quick corner follow. If one's hanging, I mean, there's, with the quarterbacks, with the edge guys, there's a good chance that there's going to be some outstanding corners creeping down to 14.
Yeah, again, some of those guys are some of the really good players in this draft. So, it depends on what the movement in front of us looks like. If somebody wants to come up and say, hey, we want this guy or we want that guy, to look at all these mock drafts and everything right now, those get turned upside down really, really quickly.
Your experience, how commonplace is it to have 14 players with a grade that would warrant you feeling comfortable selecting at 14?
Yeah, well, I can take the easy way out and say this is really my second year doing this. So the draft board's different every year. We definitely don't want to try and suppress players. Try and look at what they can do and how they're going to help us and how they're going to fit into our scheme. But that's an important thing, is just look, what fits for us might not fit for somebody else, and vice versa. So, you're hoping there at 14 you can get a pretty good player. And, I'd say throughout the first round, there's an old philosophy, you're taking a player in the first round, you hoping that player is going to come in and make an impact for you.
Let me ask you mentioned your second year doing it sort of jokingly, but what did you learn going through the process in this role last year that maybe that you can apply this year that would help you that you didn't know last year?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm learning things, every day. There's so many nuances to the CBA and all that. Really just as far as player evaluation, that hasn't changed for me. At a certain point, you learn you got to stick with your gut. You may change a grade, on a guy because, as a young scout, you don't have that kind of conviction. Here at a certain point, you've seen enough players, you kind of have a better idea as to what works and what doesn't. Look, that doesn't always work out 100%. I'll go back to the I don't have all the answers here, but we're working hard, and I would say a big part of that is trying to narrow down not just what I think, but what other people think, and really, focus on the collaborative process. And that's been great with, working with Elliot and Cam and all the area scouts and the national scouts to try and, have a consensus. When we have a consensus on a player, that's when you start feeling pretty good about things.
Matt, a few weeks ago at the owners' meetings, Robert Kraft underscored the importance of having a good draft. Is that, he said last year was better results, but we need to draft well. Does that underscore for you how important this draft this month is for the future of the organization?
Yeah, no, Mr. Kraft's exactly right, but I don't think, there's not an owner or a general manager or a head coach that doesn't feel that way. I'm pretty sure nobody's going into the draft saying, we'll be all right if we screw up on our first round pick. You can't miss on those guys. That's an investment. That's a 4 or 5 year investment. It's great to find those free agents, certainly from a cost spending perspective. But you're making a real investment in that guy who you're taking in the first round, and then in the second and third rounds as well. But with that 5th year option on the first year guys, you better do your homework and make sure you get those guys right, from a character perspective and from a player perspective.
Matt, I remember you saying last year during the draft, I think it was after the second night of the draft, you felt like you guys got faster. You got 3 great athletes in those first 3 picks. And I think you said something along the lines of, if you want to have a fast team, you better draft fast guys. How important is speed and continuing that trend for you guys moving forward as you continue to build your team?
Yeah, I don't think you can be fast enough. I don't think that there's a team in this league that's saying, we got enough. Like, if they can get faster, they're going to get faster. When you lose a fast guy, you say, that's a lot of speed we just lost. How are we going to replace that? So, look, we want to get tougher. We want to get faster. Sometimes you got to find that balance. Ideally, you find it in the same guy. Doesn't always happen that way. But you want to get faster, draft fast guys. You want to get bigger, stronger. That's what you got to do. You can't really think that the guy's going to come in here and you're going to have a magic wand and all of a sudden you're going to make them faster or bigger or stronger. So, just really trying to get to know these players as well as we can and know what they're going to do and know what they are and not ask them to do things that they're not going to succeed at.
Matt, is quarterback a position that you're constantly looking to add to since it's so important? And how do you feel about the team's depth chart now with 3 players here this week?
Yeah, somebody asked me, a little bit ago. We had a pretty good quarterback around here for a long time. I was an area scout. Nobody ever said, hey, don't worry about, evaluating those quarterbacks. Don't worry about that guy at San Jose State. Don't worry about that guy at, Miami. We evaluate every position. Quarterback's certainly a very important position, if not the most important position. We went through it last year. We'd obviously drafted a guy the year before, drafted a guy last year, and that's just part of the competitive atmosphere that we have around here. And guys are going to, thrive and come in here and compete if that's in their nature.
Matt, this is the highest you guys will draft since I think it's 2008. How does being at least in this range not change the process in terms of evaluation, but maybe conversations and as you play out scenarios in the coming days of what could happen given we're a little higher?
Right, yeah, we were 15 2 years ago, so got some experience kind of there. And look, every draft's different, and one position, there's some guys there, and then there might be a little bit more interest in people looking to come up. But 14, we have a pretty good idea of what the interest is on being able to come up or being able to move back, and what caliber players right there from just a couple of years ago.
How much do you weigh expiring contracts with guys coming up? Looking at, for instance, there's Duggar, Leonard, there's Josh Uche, 2023, after that, Judon, 2023. I'm not saying those guys won't be signed or anything, but as you get into these early picks, you have talented players. How much does that enter into your decision-making on draft?
Sure, be pretty short-sighted if you didn't know what the player's contract situation was on your team. And like you said, there's the possibility to re-sign guys, just like we re-signed guys this year, and we lost guys this year too. That's the nature of the NFL. That's the nature of football, whether it's high school, college, or the NFL. It's constant change. So whether it was in college and you knew senior class was moving on, or you had a really talented player who might be leaving after his 3rd year, you better start recruiting that position. And it's the same thing here. We have the possibility of retaining those players, unlike you did in college. But yeah, you keep it in your mind, and I think we got to know what all our players' contract situations are.
Matt, when you look at a lot of the top teams across the NFL, they have multiple elite weapons. The Bengals have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. The Eagles have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The Dolphins have Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Do you guys feel like you've done enough, put enough around Mac Jones this offseason? Do you feel like your offense can be as elite?
Yeah, we're going to keep pushing and looking to try and get better at every position. And the guys that we have, I know are working hard to try and maximize their opportunities. And I know Mac's working hard, and trying to do everything that he can to take advantage of his opportunities.
Matt, a few years ago, it was either in this press conference or maybe the first night of the draft, I remember Nick saying that he felt really good about the roster, that they could take the field in September with that roster as it was and play a game. What are your thoughts about the current composition of the roster, and how does that impact whether you're more likely to trade down or stay at 14 and make a bid?
Yeah, I mean, that's also a function of what the board looks like. So you find that balance kind of with, is there a player who you think can come in and make that instant impact for you? Certainly no team is complete right now. We're got quite a few spots to fill to get to 90. That's certainly more than what we'll be able to take to the first game. I feel better having a few more months. Maybe Nick was ready to go to a game. Maybe Nick's ready to go to a game right now. But I'll take a couple more months to keep building the roster. And like it's always been said around here, we're trying to build a team, and that's certainly not going to be complete until we go through the draft.
We had 2 interesting picks last year, both with the Cole Strange one from Tennessee Chattanooga, which was an eye widener just based upon what us experts, many experts thought where he would go. And then Tyquan Thornton just didn't fit what we have always looked at as the measurables, skinny wrists, not the regional. Do you anticipate being as, this isn't fair to say, it's the only word, random this year? I mean, the year before was very chalk with Mac and Christian Barmore. It's interesting to watch the way you guys work with different years.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just necessarily last year. We're definitely trying to follow the model of find good football players. I definitely learned that lesson with Mike Onwenu. There weren't a lot of guards his size on our roster. When we decided to select him, it was really difficult for me going into Michigan and evaluating Mike and kind of projecting him into our offense given what we had typically played. And Mike's come in here and been a good player for us. So, skinny wrists, I'll leave that to you guys. Measure their wrists.
Tell me more about the Onwenu thing. That's interesting. So you came back and said, I really like this guy, even though he doesn't fit the suit?
Well, it was certainly a process, and that's where Coach Belichick and the coaches come in and their vision for how we could use a player.
Matt, from the outside looking in, what you guys have done this offseason, basically swapping out Jacoby for Juju, you added Mike Gesicki. On defense, you brought everybody back. From the outside looking in, it looks like the personnel department said the issue with the team last year was not personnel. You're basically running it back. Would you say that's fair to say?
No, I think we're constantly evaluating every position. Look, I got to do a better job as a talent evaluator. I would certainly not just say, oh yeah, our personnel was good enough to be this or that. We were an 8-9 football team. That's, as the old saying goes, you are what you are. And that's a losing record. And I think we got to get better across the board. And one thing I know, Mr. Kraft, Coach Belichick, they're going to try and find the very best people, players. If they can find somebody better than me, they're going to find somebody better than me. So I would not say that as a personnel staff we said, yeah, our personnel was good enough. We got to try and improve in every way. And, that starts with me. I got to try and improve and do a better job and identify the players that, we think can help us win more games, because we got to win more games.
Matt, can you give us a little
Guys, want to
insight?
take two more?
Matt, can you give us a little insight into, I'm sorry, Phil, go ahead.
How confident are you in what you guys have at the tackle position right now?
We were able to, add a couple players, able to retain a couple players, and have one holdover. So we've got some good veteran guys there, a little bit of versatility, left side, right side. The question gets asked, what's the left tackle or what's the right tackle? They got to block the same guys. Defense doesn't tell us where they're going to line their guys up. So, there's certainly a type you're looking for on the left and a type you're looking for on the right, but schematically they got to block the same guys, whether it's protection or the run game. So, got some good guys there. Looking forward to working with them, see what we got in some of these new guys, and go from there.
Matt, can you just give us a little insight into the process when draft day rolls around and the collaboration that goes behind the scenes, so when it's time to make a pick, how the communication goes, your role involved in that? Does everything just get handed to Bill and Bill makes the pick? How does it work?
Yeah, Coach is really good at asking questions. Asking questions of myself, of Elliot Wolf, what we feel comfortable with, what we think we should do. And, usually we work through a lot of those situations like we're doing right now. How we stack this position. All right, if we take this position in this round, how does that affect what we're going to take later on in the draft? So definitely a collaborative, group that we have in there, and it's been great working together and trying to, like I said, and evaluating the players. Eventually you got to make that pick, which is a little bit different than evaluating players, but when we've got a consensus on that, that's when you feel pretty good about things, and been fortunate that we've had those kinds of feelings here, at least early on here, in the past couple of drafts when I've been a part of things.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck to the Celtics and Bruins. I'll give one other message. Early happy birthday to the head coach and general manager of my family. So, thank you guys.
Thank you. All right, good luck, everybody.